It's Don here from the board. Thanks for coming along and checking out this video. Today I'm going to be reviewing the Vortex Cypher. So I don't know terribly much about this keyboard, to be honest, and I do know it's one of the later versions of a smaller form factor made by Vortex Gear, and I want to say thank you of course to Mitenolet for actually sending me this keyboard to review. I didn't know how many other people locally would have actually bought one of these, and therefore this is a really great opportunity for me to be able to check one out. Now before I switch over to my desktop so you can actually see what this keyboard looks like and we go through testing and reviewing it proper, I just want to show you that on Vortex's website, which I've got now on the screen here, under the keyboard category, they don't actually show the Cypher. So we've got the Core, we've got the Poker 3, and we've got the Rgb Poker. So you can see through the actual product listing, only 2 pages worth of products, it doesn't talk about the Cypher at all. So there is zero technical information specifically listed on Vortex Gear's own website, which I think, is probably a little bit lacking. Now you can get information from other vendors, but I'm not particularly affiliated with any of them, and so I don't want to be making any misrepresentations about things by bringing their pages up. But so that's the first thing that I want to say is, for some reason or other, you don't see the Race 3 either that's being displayed on Vortex Gear's website, which I think is just like, why wouldn't you be showing off the products that you have? I know they do have a Facebook presence and all that kind of stuff, but if this is your official website, you should be putting as much stuff there as possible. At least that's what I think. Right, let's switch over to the desktop. So here it is. Now, you may have already seen this as part of the unboxing video that I did the other week, depending on when this video gets out. But I did want to review this as soon as possible so that I could actually send the keyboard back to Mitenolet, simply because I didn't want to deprive him of being able to actually make use of this keyboard. Now, the packaging outside is pretty simple. Vortex Gear's logo, here it is. It is an ANSI US with a Cherry MX silver switch. The color is black, and there's the particular serial number. There's nothing else going on around the case. There's no other additional printing, but this actually is only an external case, as we saw the other day when I quickly opened it up. So if I open up this outer protective box, we will see that there's actually a sort of internal box as well. So there's the actual keyboard proper. There's a cable, which I guess we'll potentially need. Yeah, it's a USB-C, so I will need that. And then this is the inner shell that holds and protects the keyboard, even though it kind of was sliding around just before. Okay, so that's what it looks like when it comes in. It's got a slip in it, and let's just see. It doesn't look like there's anything else underneath that. Okay, so let's just put that aside. And there it is in protective sleeve. Let's gently nudge it out. So there you go. There is the Vortex Cypher in black. From my basic reading, it is equipped with PBT laser etched keycaps in probably what I would describe as an OEM, or very close to an OEM profile. I actually don't have cubic. I've never seen cubic personally, so I don't know if it is cubic or not, but I'm just going to call it an OEM or cubic or OEM-like profile, because if I hold up vertically, you can sort of see that fairly standard looking stagger. But while we're actually on this particular profile, you can see it's actually got quite a high rise to it compared to the front, and it's, yeah, I think it's probably about a 5-degree maybe angle on that. I don't know where my ruler's gone. Where's my ruler? There's my ruler. so we can check out how high the actual keyboard sits from the bottom surface. So you're looking about almost an inch at the front there, on that front edge, about, you know, just 3/4 inch maybe, and then on the back it's actually just over an inch, about 3 centimeters or so, so like 1.25 inches maybe, roughly. I'm not doing that kind of conversion in my head. It's actually about midnight right now, and I'm just taking the time because my daughter's in bed and my wife's in bed, so I've got a bit of quiet that I can do this review in. Okay, so what can we see first off impressions about this keyboard? It has a lot of weight to it. It's for what it is, it's a 65%, so there's your 60% keyboard plus the extra row. It has a split spacebar, so we've got our arrow keys, and we've got a function key and a PN key, which I guess is related to additional functions, secondary layers, or other features. Now, noting that there was no manuals at all in the box, it may have come with some paper documentation. It might not have come with some paper documentation. There just wasn't in any of the box and packaging that Mitenolet actually sent over to me. Now, I do apologize if I am sounding a bit quiet, but that's because I don't want to be too loud, because as I said, my family's sleeping. So it's got a good weight to it. Now, it is a plastic case. You can feel the plastic case, and it's pretty rigid. I'm gonna say that, you know, I'm giving it a bit of twist. You can feel it twist and flex, but it's not holding that flex. Like, I twist it and it does have a good resilience to it. It is sort of flexing back, and I like that. So whatever plate that they've got in there and the mounting points is doing its job. Now, I did go specifically into the kitchen and I brought out the kitchen scales, which I've been using for a lot of the other videos, so you can see reflection of the microphone and the actual top-down camera. Let's get that on and let's check out the weight of this keyboard as well. So we're looking at a, might as well tear it even though it says 0. We're looking at a keyboard weight of 640 grams, so that's like what, 1.5 pounds maybe, for those who like those measurements. And then of course if we put in the cable as well, you're looking what, just on 700 grams. So it's not super light, but at the same time it's not super heavy. It's a good moderate weight. Right, Mr. Scales, you can go back over there temporarily. Now, speed, silvers, I believe, are linears. They're the first time this will be the first time that I've experienced speed silvers. So yeah, they are linears. I actually don't know what their weight is, but I'm not going to say that they're scratchy, but they're definitely not smooth straight out. I can feel sort of friction on these, and for me, I would not normally say that I have the most sensitive fingers. So for me to be able to feel the friction on these linears, it does mean they do have a bit more friction and scratchiness compared to some of the other stems out there that I have experienced. But I do find that it's interesting. I can actually feel spring inconsistencies here, and that's kind of a little bit of a concern for me. Now, I do note that weeks and weeks and weeks ago in our podcast, we talked about the variance of spring weights from Cherry that came out of that retooled blacks controversy, where some of the springs were like heaps different in actual spring weight when they thought they were going to get some switches that were the same, and Cherry said, well, actually they're well within our specs if you look at our spec sheet, which is like a 20% variance or thereabouts. So just by pressing some of these 1Us on these linears, because there's no tactility that gets in the way from a tactile bump or a click, I'm going to say that some of these springs are actually lighter than others. Yeah, definitely. Okay, so first impressions, the feel of the keycaps. They're nice and smooth. They're pretty new, so I'm not going to expect that they're going to have shine on them. They are PBT and they do have that texture. I don't know if the camera is going to focus very well and catch it, but there we go. So you can kind of see the reflection on that texture. It's sort of that matty graininess, but there's a slickness and a smoothness to them. The Legends is fairly standard. I'm not going to say that they're a gaming font, but they do have that blockiness that you do see on a lot of keycap sets. It's pretty clean for what I'm going to say. You can't feel any of that texture, so that's nice. Now, in terms of the profile, it's quite flat, and I do note that there is no flip out feet on the bottom of this. It's purely angled as it is. Actually, let's see if anything on the back. No, that gives nothing away at all. And I'm gonna apologize if any of this glitter makes it back to Mitenolet, because glitter is like cancer. But when you have a small child in daycare, inevitably it comes home, just like sand and communicable diseases for small children. Now, let us just check the functionality. I'm being quite extensive with this one today for some reason. I already pulled up switch header and everything else, so let's go over to the right hand side. Let's undo this little cable and plug this USB cable in, because I don't have a C normally plugged in, since I don't have a lot of USB-C devices at all. It is on a left hand side. Okay, so it's plugged in, and hopefully switch header will say yes. Okay, so escape works. 126. So that was the other split. Okay, so now that I've gone and tested all those keys, what we can see is that the function and the PN key actually do not trigger the menu or win key or control key on the right hand side at all. I'm gonna say that, so shift 1 is going to be exclamation mark, shift escape is not going to be the tilde. So let's try function escape. There we go. Okay, so function escape is tilde. Now function 1, okay, so as I suspected, the function row is going to be the F key row, but I don't know what the PN is going to do. Now, because I don't have the manual here with me, I don't want to go messing with it in case it does screw up whatever that Mitenolet had put on it already, but that's enough for me to say that none of the keys straight out for these speed silvers. Are they speed silvers? They're just MX silvers. I don't know what the difference is, to be honest, because it's a linear, and linear is not the most interesting for me, just in general. But yeah, they feel alright. I'm not going to talk too much about the sound yet, simply because I'll drop the mic and I can do a bit of a chirping and sound, but straight out of the box, we don't have any bouncing issues. I don't have any chatter issues. Sorry, that's the word I was looking for. Whereas some other keyboards I have tested that there was a chatter issue with the Mateus keyboard that I did ages ago. Okay, so I'm just going to unplug that because it seems like it all works, which is fantastic. Okay, now just going to recoil this cable. And put it back into its slip. Right, so let's head back over and check out the keyboard on the desktop. Come on. go back in the box there. That can tuck in under. Right, now, so before I get into a typing kind of thing, I'm just gonna use my switch, my keycap puller, and pop a couple of these up just so we can have a squiz at what's going on here. So there is the MX Cherry Silvers. There's definitely no lighting involved at all. It's pretty plain. And if I you can hear the ping on the spring on that H key, whereas the G key doesn't have it, but you can... Oh. No, it doesn't really, but you can hear that scratchiness on that. So you probably want to do some kind of lube job on it if that was an option. Now, the site that I saw said PBT, but these don't look very PBT to me. So these could be ABS. I don't really want to chemically test them in any way whatsoever. But let's have a look at these perhaps in a better level detail, if it'll let me focus that way. Okay, so we've seen the top before, you've seen the texture. They could still be PBT, they could just be cheaper PBT. But the inside, it's a row 2, the markings in there don't say very much. They're reasonably thick. You can see sprue marks though, so for example that right there on the back in the middle of that keycap, that's actually a sprue mark from the keycap manufacturing process. Yeah, the stem's not terribly thick or big, it's fairly sort of standard in size, but it just doesn't look and feel like a PBT keycap that I'm used to. Okay, so I'm not going to say whether it is or it isn't, but just really has an ABS feel about it. That's really more than anything else. Now, where did my ruler go? So in terms of keycap thickness, we're accustomed to thick PBTs, which are around 1.5, and these are just on 1 mil. Okay, so just checking the other axis. Yeah, so these are 1 mil, not super thick at 1.5, but it's nice at least that they are 1 mil. Of course, if I check the other one, it says pretty much the same thing as well. It's from a different production line though, because this one is row 2 2B and this one is row 2 2A. So the actual production line that made the H keycap has an A on the stamp, whereas this one has a B on the stamp for the G. But other than that, they're pretty much identical, as you would expect, because they're right next to each other. They fit on reasonably snug, and they don't, like, if I'm going to do the flick test, they don't come off. And it doesn't seem like the height of that key has deviated at all. And interestingly, by doing that, you can kind of also hear the hollowness of the actual shell, which it's not too bad. It's not too bad. All right, now of course what everybody's actually wanting to know about is how does it sound? Well, we've already pressed a couple of the keys, and actually I'm going to be really daring, and I'm going to maybe pop off one of these split space bars. Maybe. I don't want to damage his keycaps. I'm not sure how they're stabilized, because if they are co-stars, I'm going to hate it, because I'm not a co-star kind of guy. Oh, okay. Wow, that's really interesting. So once again, same sort of thickness on that. It's what I would call a not quite 3U. It's a fairly standard sort of 2U spacebar, but they got pinky salmon kind of colored stabilizers on them. Yeah, I don't know if they're actual genuine cherry ones or if they're just Chinese copies. They are plate mount though, so just got to be careful of that. But interestingly, there is an RGB indicator underneath there. So you'll see there's an LED right there, and I think if I had used the PN key over here and switched layers, that will light up just like how the Vortex core does. So I think that's pretty neat. But since I'm going to be here anyway, I am going to take off the other one. And what do you know? So there is another, what looks to be an RGB LED over here that probably complements that actually. So they'll change colors according to whatever layer that you have going on. Now they are an uneven size, as you can see from the keycaps. If it'll focus, the keycaps are an uneven size. So I suppose you got to make sure you know which one's going on. And I almost flipped these space bars by reflex because I prefer flipped space bars, but I won't. I won't. It's a pretty good sound. Okay, so let us move the microphone down and let's get a bit of typing happening. About the same rough position as I normally do it. And here we go. Okay, so just some general key spamming. Alrighty. Okay, so that is a rough-ish sound test of what this Vortex Cypher with the MX Silvers sounds like. It's not unpleasant. I think it would probably sound nicer if I put O-rings into them, and also if I didn't bottom out, because I do have a habit of bottoming out no matter what I use. That's just how I type, and at least because of that, everything that I do is at least baselined to be bottoming out. On all my personal keyboards, I put O-rings on my keycaps to, take a little bit of that edge off and to dull that sound. But obviously, this is the stock keyboard as it is. I think the thickness of the keycaps do help reduce a higher pitch and ping. While I was typing that, I didn't really hear any ping. And I said before that the H key, the actual H switch, had that spring ping to it. But now if I hold it up and sort of do the same test with the keycap on it, you can still hear it. You can still hear it. So having the keycap on it isn't really masking that very well. Therefore, if you do type lightly and you don't bottom out, you may end up actually hearing that spring ping. And if that bothers you, well, I guess you're going to have a problem with it. There you go. That is the Vortex Cypher, a split spacebar 65% with programmable layers by the looks of it. It's very sleek, it's very simple, it's got a good weight of about 640, 650 grams or 700 grams once you put the cable in it. I think it would suit very well for, you know, gaming that doesn't require a lot of additional functions. It would suit obviously people who are typists and programmers. It would sit in an office environment without, you know, putting anything different out there except for the fact that people might notice it's a smaller keyboard. And of course, if you bottom out that it sounds louder, but just not clicky. How much would you pay for one of these? I actually don't even know how much Mitenolet paid for this. I would probably pitch it in around the same price range as a Poker 3 is what I would expect to be paying for something like this. Because it doesn't have RGB lighting or any of that kind of fancy stuff, I would expect it to be perhaps cheaper than the RGB model and roughly around the same as the Poker 3, simply because between a 60 and a 65%, there's not very much between it at all. So there you go. The Vortex Cypher. Neat. Pretty neat. Well, thank you very much to Mitenolet for sending me this keyboard to review. Really appreciate it. Of course, along with all the other goodies and bits and pieces that he sent along, I will be doing another video and review of an artisan keycap, and I think I'm going to try and do a video on what we're calling Dr. Keyboarding, where I'll have a look at this Magiforce 68 that he sent along that has some problems, see if we can diagnose and fix it and restore that keyboard to working order as well. Now, to, of course, not forget our people that support us and make everything possible. I want to say thank you to, man, that is really bright on my screen over there. All of our Patreon supporters. You know, you guys supporting us makes a lot of this happen, makes a lot of this possible. So really love it and appreciate it. And please, of course, don't forget that you can check us out on Instagram, you can check us out on Facebook, you can check us out on Reddit, and of course on Patreon as well. If you like this kind of stuff, you want to see more reviews, I would be more than happy if you want to send me stuff to review, and I'll be happy to send it back if, you know, the shipping is reasonable cost. Of course, Mitenolet being within Australia means it's a lot more affordable compared to someone shipping me something from the US or Europe or Asia. But if you want to help us out, please hit like, please hit share, and of course, you're new to all of this, please hit subscribe as well. Now, I don't know when this video is actually going to be released, hopefully soon. Please check out videos in our library in this catalog for any competitions that might still be running, and we also run competitions all the time on our podcast. So if you're interested in listening and checking out our podcast, you can find that at theboardpodcast.com. So thanks very much for coming along and checking out this video, and as always, until next time, happy clacking.